This episode of Two Views Wrestling, we are going to discuss tag teams. Throughout history, there have been a lot of great tag teams. Merlin and King Arthur, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, Mario and Luigi. Professional wrestling is no different. There have been countless great tag teams to step in the squared circle. Teams like the Midnight Express, the Dudley Boys, and FTR have all cemented their spot as great tag teams. There are different types of tag teams. There are brother tag teams like the Hardy Boys and the Briscoes. There are single stars that form a team and find success like the Outsiders and the Rock and Sock Connection. Today I want to look at some of my favorite tag teams in the history of the sport. Before we get to the list, remember to hit a 3D on the like button and a doomsday device on that subscribe button. Now, let's hit the hot tag and start the list. Number 5, Beer Money. Cowboy James Storm and Robert Roode are a perfect example of two good single stars that can make a great tag team. These two went from fledgling in the bottom of the card as singles wrestlers to becoming the best tag team in TNA history. Beer Money had battles with every top team in TNA and most of the time came out on top. They defeated LAX, Team 3D, and British Invasion, and countless other lesser-known teams. They had a great look as a team, and their characters played off each other well. They hit great double team moves, which I think is a major key for a great tag team. What earned them their spot on this list is the best of 5 series they had with the Motor City Machine Guns. These two teams would put on classic matches that consisted of a street fight, a ladder match, a cage match, an Ultimate X match, and finally a best 2 out of 3 falls match. That final match may be one of the best tag matches in the last 20 plus years. Number 4, Harlem Heat. We are going from the best tag team in TNA history to the best tag team in WCW history. Booker T and Stevie Ray are a legit brother tag team that left their mark on the wrestling industry. I didn't start watching WCW until 1994 when Hulk Hogan showed up, and Harlem Heat were easily one of the things I liked about the company. They were a staple of the Monday Night Wars, which many fans consider the best period in wrestling. They were a huge asset for WCW during the wars. They had great matches with teams like the Nasty Boys, Public Enemy, and Blue Bloods. They would even be featured in some main event matches. Once they got Sherry Martel as their manager, things really took off. Their title feuds with the Steiners and Outsiders were some of the best tag title matches in WCW history. They are also kind of like the Rockers of WCW. When they split up, Booker T would go on to be one of the biggest stars ever, and Stevie Ray didn't really do a whole lot. But Harlem Heat is still one of the great teams. Number 3, the Road Warriors. Hawk and Animal are widely regarded as the greatest tag team ever. Every big tag team from the 80s and 90s had to lock up with the Legion of Doom, and it was usually the LOD coming out on top. Memorable feuds with everyone from the Freebirds, the Koloffs, the Four Horsemen, to the Steiners, the Natural Disasters, and even the New Age Outlaws are still talked about. All those famous teams are like stamps on Hawk and Animal's passports to wrestling immortality. Everything these two did screamed badass. From the haircuts and face paint to the spiked shoulder pads and beatdowns they would give to their opponents. I mean, Hawk would take a pile driver on the top of his skull and not sell it. How could you not love these guys? They are the only team to hold the AWA, NWA, and WWF tag team titles. They also were a big deal in Japan and even had a match over there that saw them press Hulk Hogan over their heads. How many people can say they did that? The Road Warriors are one of those acts in wrestling that no matter how much praise you heap on them, it still isn't enough. I have a lot of respect and love for this team, but they aren't exactly my favorite. Two teams surpass them, and let's take a look at who they are. Number 2, the Steiner brothers. If you want to talk about two guys you wouldn't want to run into in a dark alley, it's these two right here. It didn't matter if you were in WCW, WWF, ECW, Japan, or even TNA, Rick and Scott Steiner were going to toss you around like a bag of trash. The Steiners were two legit badasses that would hit some of the craziest moves. Rick would suplex with reckless abandon, and his bulldog off the top literally broke someone's neck. Scott was an innovator in the ring. He hit the first 450 splash in the U.S., and his Frankensteiner was a revolutionary move for the time. The Steiners had countless great tag matches against basically every big team of the 90s. Outsiders, Harlem Heat, Money Inc., Doom, and the Road Warriors all had to battle Rick and Scott, and I'm sure they all had to cover themselves in ice afterwards. There are countless matches I could choose from to say were the best of the Steiners, but for me, hands down, it is their match from Beach Blast 1992 against Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy. This is just four big, strong, bad dudes having it out for 30 straight minutes. It's like something you would see in a small town bar on a Saturday night. Number 1, the Hart Foundation. Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart are the best tag team ever in my opinion. They had the perfect combination of speed, power, technical skills, and worked great as a tag team. The duo first gained fame with their instant classics they had with the British Bulldogs. The two teams matched up tremendously and had great chemistry. The Hart Foundation stood out once they started to wear pink gear. The pink and black attack quickly became one of the best teams in the world. They had good matches with teams like Strikeforce, Killer Bees, and the Rockers. One aspect of the Hart Foundation that I think goes unnoticed is they were the MVPs of the first 3 SummerSlam events. Their matches with Demolition and the Brainbusters are easily the best matches on those early events. As a matter of fact, the 2 out of 3 Falls match against Demolition from SummerSlam 1990 is still my favorite tag team match to this day. The Anvil and the Hitman may not have had 20 title reigns like some teams, or throw 40 super kicks a match like some teams, but they knew how to work as a team, they knew how to tell a story, and they knew how to put on classics.
First thing that popped off to me about the list is no Hardy Boys.
Yeah, I wasn't too big a fan of the Hardy Boys. This was like they came along in my preteen, teen era, and I was like, I don't like these long-haired pretty boys.
Like the Beer Money call out, I was always a fan of them. I thought they were fun. Road Warriors, that's a team that I get it, but I also like they're not like a
Yeah,
favorite of mine. I understand they were good though.
yeah,
Harlem Heat was the shit to me. I love that call out. Stevie Ray was always just blah, but in the tag team he was dope as fuck.
oh yeah, yeah,
I remember as a kid playing with my wrestling figures, and a lot of the matches I would always do would be Harlem Heat face Nasty Boys, Harlem Heat winning because Booker T was just a shit to me. And then the Steiner brothers, they're goat to me. I don't understand how they're these physical freaks, and I'll find myself still watching their matches, and like I'm there rooting for them. Like I know they're
yeah,
gonna win. I know what's gonna happen. They're the badasses. I still feel like I gotta root for these guys. I don't know what it is about them, but they're just like perfect baby faces to me. The other one that jumped out on your list to me a lot is Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I I'm a huge fan of Bret Hart. I think he was a GOAT. I think that pretty much every great wrestling idea has been stolen from him, or he's yeah, either stolen from him or he gets the credit for it. Uh, Never find myself going and looking back at the tag matches. I think for me, part of it is just he's so amazing to me as a singles guy. I've often wondered about Jim the Anvil though, if
It
he was anything more, just because I'm used to that Hart Foundation where Owen Hart's there and British and Jim's just this
yeah.
guy.
Yeah, it's almost like they both were kind of floundering type of deal, and then when they got together, it was like everything clicked and it was magic. The Hart Foundation in that late '80s, early '90s era, that's probably the best like Jim the Anvil Neidhart ever did. They were a great tag team. If you can find any of the stuff with the Bulldogs, that's incredible. And like I said, their 2 out of 3 falls with Demolition is great.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that
And
one
there's
out.
it's cool because there's 3 members of Demolition, and they keep one hiding under the ring, and they keep swapping out. So it's a cool story of Brett and the Anvil like battling as the underdogs against these 3 guys that keep switching in and out and getting refreshed. It's a great match. And one thing I wanted to mention was how those teams would do little things to stand out. You talk about Harlem Heat. I loved when Harlem Heat would make an entrance. They would cut promos to the camera as they were walking down the aisle. I love that. I think that was a cool way to get your stuff in. Like, okay, we don't have promo time. Well, there's our promo time. The Steiners, I noticed, would like switch boots. Like one of them would wear one's boot, one like they would have
Yeah.
mismatched boots, but they were a match and pair. If it makes sense, like one guy would wear a white and red boot, and the other guy would wear a white and red boot, and it was like it's just something like you
To stand
question,
out.
like why would
Yeah.
they do that? The Road Warriors there and everything they did like stood out. I like the beer money chant. Like I feel like a lot of teams don't do that. Like have a moment in the ring that the fans are going to get behind with the beer money. And then the Hart Foundation, just they were like the stereotypical like tag team wrestling, like double team moves, tagging in and out, like telling the story. I just love all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look more about the Hart Foundation because that's one that I have been asleep on
Yeah.
when I look at your list of best tag teams to you. In the comments, let us know your views on the list of favorite tag teams and who are some of your favorite tag teams.